Welcome back to Freedom Friday. Today we're asking a bold question. Who changed the meaning of the African skin? Our feature text is Jeremiah 13:23. Can a Cushite change his skin or a leopard his spots? Then you also will be able to do good who are accustomed to do evil. Jeremiah asks, can a Cushite change his skin? In that verse, the Bible isn't condemning the African, it's affirming identity. It's saying that what God created cannot be undone. But somewhere along the way, a diabolical strategy emerged. Since white supremacy could not change the color of black skin, it changed instead the meaning, what that black skin meant. And we've subconsciously internalized the lie that the black skin is a sign of inferiority, proof of backwardness, primitiveness, or even divine punishment. The mark of Cain, the curse of Canaan, that sort of thing. But the truth is this: black skin is a mark of distinction. It's the visible sign of a people chosen to be the cradle of civilization, the first bearers of human culture, wisdom, and divine image. Just as a leopard spots identify what it is, the black skin identifies the African. It's not a mark of guilt or shame, but of identity, the mark of God's creative intention and purpose. As Marcus Garvey declared, the black skin is not a badge of shame, but rather a glorious symbol of national greatness. So what happened? How did it come about that the black skin came to represent the lowest of humanity? Over the centuries, colonizers and their theologians distorted both scripture and history to make African skin a source of shame. Passages that once honored the African presence in the biblical story were twisted to justify enslavement and degradation. They weaponized verses like Jeremiah 13:23, making it sound as though African identity was synonymous with sin. And when that wasn't enough, they rewrote history, refusing to acknowledge Africa's role as the mother of nations and the very fountain of civilization. Even when the evidence was overwhelming, European scholars refused to accept it. Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop, the great Senegalese nuclear physicist, anthropologist, and historian, exposed this hypocrisy when he quoted the French writer Champollion Figeac, who made the absurd argument that black skin and kinky hair, I'm quoting him, black skin and kinky hair are not enough to stamp a race as Negro. In writing that, he was trying to refute the clear conclusions of the 18th century writer and traveler Volney that ancient Egyptians were African. Imagine that. Europeans saying, yes, the Egyptian skin was black, their hair was woolly, but they weren't really black. In fact, some have argued with a straight face they were white. Why is that? Because acknowledging that truth would mean admitting that the founders of civilization, the builders of Egypt, Nubia, and Tarseti, were African people. So what did we lose? We lost the pride in the black skin and what it meant, what it still means. For centuries, blackness was made to represent sin, darkness, subservience, and ignorance. And what do we need to reclaim? We need to reclaim the understanding that black skin is the mark of God's purpose and a witness to African genius. In truth, the black skin is a sign of divine creativity and beauty, a color that carries the story of humanity's beginning. Dr. Dia points out that the black skin itself bears witness to Africa's role as the cradle of humanity. He noted that modern science affirms that life began in Africa, and the continent's climate made black skin not only natural, but necessary for survival. Thus, the black skin is more than a physical characteristic. It is living evidence of Africa's central place within the human story, an enduring testimony to the African's origin and belonging in the family of humankind. Dr. Diop writes, when we say that the ancestors of the blacks were the first to invent mathematics, astronomy, the calendar, we are merely expressing the plain, unvarnished truth that no one today can refute by arguments worthy of the name. Africa was the birthplace of human civilization. It was the land of God's early revelation, the land of Cush, Egypt, and Ethiopia. And yet, through colonial distortion, the meaning of this skin was reversed, from a mark of divine distinction to a supposed curse. But the time has come to reclaim what was stolen. It's time to remember who we are. Unfortunately, many of us have internalized the myths of white supremacy, often transmitted through religious teaching, deliberate miseducation, and political ideological propaganda. We may have a black skin, but many of us also have a subjugated mindset. Steve Biko, the brilliant South African philosopher activist, pioneered the black consciousness movement in the late 1960s under the apartheid regime. His central insight? Black people could not simply wait for external change. They had to regain their self-worth internally and affirm their identity as black, not as a category of inferiority. Biko observed that the system of apartheid did not only oppress black people externally through laws and segregation, but also internally by undermining their sense of value, identity, and pride. He defined being black not merely by skin color, but by a stance of dignity, self-recognition, and refusal to accept inferiority. He insisted, being black is not a matter of pigmentation. Being black is a reflection of a mental attitude. And the greatest weapon of the oppressor, he wrote further, is the mind of the oppressed. Steve Biko was murdered while in police custody in 1977 at the age of 30. His death amplified the story of black resistance and identity. And I want to ask a question. If Biko could say being black is a mental attitude in the face of brutal oppression, then what meaning could that give to us today when we look in the mirror? When we look at our skin, we must see it as God sees it, not as history's colonizers defined it. We must declare once and for all that blackness is not a burden, it's a blessing. It's not a symbol of shame, it's a symbol of sacred identity. The black skin is a testimony. It tells the world we are here by divine design. We are not the cursed, we are the cradle. We're not the forgotten, we are the foundation. And as we reclaim that meaning, we also reclaim our power. Spiritual, intellectual, psychological, and historical. We reclaim the truth that Africa was and remains central to God's unfolding story of humanity. So, can the Cushite change his skin? No. And why would he want to? The question is not whether the African can change his skin, but whether the world can change its vision. When God looked at creation, he didn't call it inferior. He said, it's very good. And that includes every shade, every hue, every tone of skin that he formed. And the black skin is not a curse, it's a covenant mark, a visible reminder that God's creative power, dignity, and image are reflected in Africa and in her children. I'm Conroy Reynolds, and this has been Freedom Friday, where we free our minds with truth and our hearts with faith. It's where we tell the whole story. If this has been helpful or even prompted you to think a little more deeply on these issues, like, subscribe, and share Freedom Friday.